children at easily the most stressful time of their academic life to date. And so to them, congratulations and kudos.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for your overview. Dr. Smith will allow you as well a few minutes just from your perspective to give a brief overview of the results before we go to a short bump and then delve into the numbers.
Okay, so I would just like to join with the Minister in saying congratulations, first of all, to the candidates, our students, both in school and those who would have left school and were pursuing their studies and preparation for the exam in private centers. I'd like to commend everybody for their success, for their results. Let me just say right out too that I know people are very anxious, many persons, about their top performer. We have taken the position similar to last year to hold back on that a bit because there are at least four persons who are in hot contention, and almost in each case would have queried their results, which could result in an improvement in their grades, which will affect the top students. So we just like to ask everyone to be a little patient until about a couple of weeks or so would have passed, and we'll be able to resolve that. I would like to also join the Minister in commending all that host of persons, and I'm going to go into a list of them just now, who dealt specifically with the exam, but all those other persons who would have been instrumental in some way in assisting the students in preparation for the exam. Now, we are in the 21st century, and education is even more important in a nation's development than even prior. And so the attention that is being paid to the academic performance of students and of our people is important, as well as the other aspects of education. So once again, before I present the details, congratulations to all. Many persons would have tried their best. The results might not have been exactly what you anticipated. However, remember that it is not the end of the day. You could always resit, and I will give details about that later on as well.
All right, great. Thank you very much for the overview, both gentlemen. Of course, the Minister responsible for Education, the Honourable Darrell S. Matthew, and Dr. Myrick Smith, the local Cxc Registrar. Let's take a quick bump. We'll come back to the numbers. Please, whether joining us via television, radio, or online, we'll be back in just about 2 minutes. Welcome back to this, the ABS TV special presentation of the results for the May-June sitting of Cxc this year. We were joined by the Honourable Education Minister earlier. Now Dr. Myrick Smith is alone with me on this set, and together we'll go through the results this year. Of course, this is the results for May-June for CAPE, CSEC, and of course, that exam usually taken at the third form level, the CCSC. Dr. Smith, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Charles. And I'd like to begin, before I get into the actual stats, by thanking a number of very important persons. I do that each year because these individuals are crucial for the successful administration of the exam, and I'm not taking anyone for granted. So quickly, let me start with the persons or the entity that was instrumental in bringing the exam papers to Antigua. Talking about Vernon Edwards of DHL. They have been very cooperative and helpful, and so thanks to them. The people at the air cargo shed at the VC Bird International Airport, again, when the papers come in, very cooperative in allowing me access and to clear those in timely manner. The BMN Airways that flies to Barbuda, again, thanks to them because they, without charge, transport the exam papers for Barbuda to and from. There's a host of supervisors, nearly 200 supervisors and invigilators who are the persons in the classrooms and the examination centers. They have been doing an excellent job, and congratulations and thanks to them as well. A number of persons would have served as examiners for the practical exams, for example, in modern language, French and Spanish, oral exam, in home economics, in physical education and sport, thanks to those examiners. Thanks also to the various moderators who were instrumental in moderating exams such as visual arts and other exams that in the sciences, for example, that were moderated on island. Thanks for a job well done. A number of persons served as readers and writers because our students who are challenged requested and were granted an opportunity to have a reader and a writer in one or two cases for persons who were physically challenged. Thanks for your work as well. In my office, of course, the indomitable Miss Marista West, I always boast of her, the best secretary one could ever have. And thanks to her, without her, she's the wind beneath my wings. Thanks very much, Maritza. And my other colleagues in the examinations department, of course, namely Miss Ineta Francis and Mrs. Joelle Hurst. So this year, we saw an increase in the number of exams that were taken electronically. That continues the trend of Cxc. We're really moving from paper-based to electronic exams. And most of the centers engaged, especially in the paper one, for that examination. And I would like to commend at this point the persons who serve as technical invigilators. Many of them are IT teachers in our schools, and thanks for a job well done in facilitating that exam. And let me use the opportunity at this time to say in the January 2026 exam, it will be totally electronic. All right, both paper 2 and paper 1 will be totally electronic. I probably could go into that a little later in more detail. Now for the stats, and I'm going to start with the Cxc Results, Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate. That is the exam sat by persons at 5th form level, equivalent to the O-level, formerly O-level exams. Then I'll mention a little about the CAPE, that was the Advanced Proficiency Exam, and then finally the CCSLC. So if you could have our first slide at this point, and just advance to the next one, which shows the overall performance. And you can see I'm just showing 3 years there, that the number of candidates increased in 2025 to 1409. And that is interesting because I think regional-wise, the numbers of candidates, well, I think this year there was an increase in the region, but there's been over the years a steady decline. So we see an increase in Antigua. There are 49 candidates who took a total of 8,110 subject entries and a pass rate of 77.4, which, as the minister alluded to earlier, shows a marginal increase overall for the Cxc results. If we go to the next slide, we will now look at the just a brief look at the individual subject areas. You'll see on that first slide there, additional math has 100% pass, which was a significant improvement over last year. There were just 4 students, however, that did additional math. Agricultural science also showed a slight increase in addition to biology. And at the end there you have economics. You can see from that first slide that slight decline in Caribbean history and Caribbean and chemistry. Next slide. The other slide now shows electronics, EDPM, which was a decline, English A, very encouragingly, showed an increase and has been a steady increase in English 8 passes this year. We have 85.7%, which I think is above the regional average. English B has declined this year to 72.8%. Family and resource management, a slight decline as well. Food and nutrition, slight increase, but you see those two home ec areas there, the pass rate is extremely high, above 95%, just about. French, however, although there's an increase this year, continues to be low in terms of the pass rate of 56%. The next slide shows some other subject areas. We have geography. Now, geography is one of those subject areas that has been struggling over the years with a relatively low pass rate. This year, although it's increased over last year, it is 46.7%, it is still one of the weaker areas. Matter of fact, I think it's just second to mathematics in terms of low pass rate. Human and social biology at 84.6%, slightly down from last year, but still relatively good. Notice the 3 industrial technology subjects. Building technology, 90%, mechanical, 95%, and electrical, 85%. These 3 subject areas, they continue to have high pass rate, but as the minister pointed out, the number of students opting to do those subjects, they tend to be on the decline. Information technology is also a high-performing subject with over 90% pass this year and a slight improvement over last year. The next slide shows some other subjects. We have is that the one? I hope we're in order.
Yes, integrated science.
Yes. Let's make sure that I follow. So we have integrated science with 75% slightly down. Mathematics, as you can see, our area of lowest performance, 31.5% this year, slightly up from last year when it was 29%. However, we are still below the regional average. I think the regional average was 38% for mathematics. So you see we are significantly below the regional average. The regional average has also increased slightly this year. And so our increase this year could be a reflection of the general increase in the region. But mathematics obviously continues to be, we continue to be struggling quite a bit there. Music has 78.4%, slightly up from last year. And office administration slightly down, although it's still high, and office administration tend to have a very high pass rate of around 86%. Physical education continues to have almost 100% increase, and that has been consistent. The next slide now shows physics that is around 74%, slightly down from last year. Principles of accounts has improved this year, 82% roughly. Principles of business continues to have a very high pass rate of 91%. Now, you see religious knowledge 100%. We just had one student did that exam, and it was the year we're doing it for, not the first, but for quite a long time. One candidate who succeeded. Social studies is an area that has a large entry, has 74.1%, slightly up from last year. Next slide shows Spanish, 71% improvement over last year. So is the case with technical drawing at 81% roughly, up from last year. Clothing and textile, a very high percentage, 98%, and so is theater arts. Although it is slightly down, you can see theater arts is still in the 90s, 93%. And visual art, an improvement over last year of 87% roughly. All right, so that was just a look at. So the next slide will show some more results. So we just looked at the individual subject areas there and saw that in most of them, the pass rate is relatively, high. But now, when we look at the overall performance of students, as the minister alluded to, we see some areas that are areas of concern. So it shows, if we go back to that slide, that in 2025, candidates passing 5 subjects or more is 51.5%. Now, the average number of subjects that candidates in Antigua, our schools, do at the first sitting is around 7 or 8. All right? And we have just about 51, let's say 52%, a little more than half of our students able to achieve passes in 5 subjects or more. Up from last year, as could be seen, last year was about 49%, but still, as the minister said, and we could all agree, it is not a comfortable percentage that we're seeing there. If we go to the next slide, which shows English, we see even more alarming, because the percentage of candidates passing 5 or more subjects, including English A, last year was only 49%, again up from last year where it was roughly 45%. And if we go to the next slide, which shows math, the situation is even more dire, because 5 subjects, including math, is only 22.4% of our candidates were able to achieve that, although it is about 4 percentage point, 4, 5, 6 percentage point up from last year. And the final slide there shows when we combine math and English, the percentage is around 20% of students passing math and English, and marginally above last year, it was 19.4. So again, to underscore that 5 subjects, including math and English, is basic matriculation requirement to enter tertiary institutions, certainly UE5 Island and other tertiary institutions. And so, as is in the case with the rest of the region, we are very concerned about that. Antigua continues to be below the regional average, as I said, not only in mathematics, but in the number of students passing 5 or more subjects. If my memory serves me correctly, I think it is 44% for the region passing 5 subjects, including math and English, and we had 20%, so you see we are significantly below even the regional average in that respect. Yes, so that is the overall picture on Cxc performance. I would just like to add also, or expand on something again, echoed by the minister. From my perspective, and I've raised that, I know, with my colleagues in the ministry, is for us to begin asking the question as to whether or not the numbers of students who are opting to do the natural sciences, if we are satisfied with that number. We had, for example, of the 1,409 students who wrote exams, 14% did biology, 9% did chemistry, 9% did physics. Are these numbers sufficient, or do we need to encourage our students to be taking the natural sciences a little more? Our students tend to be opting for the business. Again, it could be driven by purely market forces. And the numbers are like in office administration, 29% of students, POB, 42% of students did that subject, POA, 18%. On the other hand, when we look at TVET areas such as building technology, only 10% of students did that, 6% did mechanical, and 6% did electrical, 14% did technical drawing. In areas of the home economics, 20% did food and nutrition, 6% did textile, clothing and fashion, 12% did family and resource management, 3% did music. And so we, just throw out those numbers for us in the ministry and maybe the other stakeholders, including the general public, to ruminate on and ask the question, do we have enough candidates doing those subject areas there? So that is it for Cxc. A brief mention about CAPE. The numbers of students doing CAPE continues to decline, and as again the minister alluded to that, because students are now able to matriculate into UE without CAPE subjects. Again, that is an area I think that is worthy of discussion as to the suitability of that situation, as opposed to having students do 2 years where they complete the A-level. Again, food for thought, we could discuss that. This year, the pass rate at CAPE is 86.4%, and we had a total of 297 candidates. and you compare that with 2019, to go back about a 5-6 year period when the number of candidates doing CAPE was 553. The mathematics, just as in the CSEC, the mathematic areas are the areas that tend to be the weakest areas in CAPE, such as applied math and integrated math. Now, finally, the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, or CCSLC, we had a total of about 4 schools that offered candidates. The numbers are very small. We had a total of 42 candidates from 4 schools who entered, who sat those examinations in English, French, digital literacy, integrated science, math, social studies, and Spanish. And of course, the grade, if you were to call it that, for CCSLC, 3 areas: mastery, competence, and developing competence. And those areas, the word speaks for themselves. Mastery means that you would have reached a mastery level of efficiency in the competencies or the skills and knowledge associated with those subject areas. Competence means that you are, as it says, you're competent, but not to the master's level. And so of the 112 overall entries, as I said, 42 candidates, 112 overall total number of subjects done by them, 20% of those entries were awarded mastery and 69% were awarded competence. And that is it for the CCSLC. Let me pause at this point, Mr. Charles, and then we could maybe drill down a little more in some areas. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. I just wanted to clarify something you said in terms of the math average. I know you said that the average continues to be concerning, worrying to education officials and stakeholders. Did you say it was the lowest in the region or lower than the regional average?
Well, I know last year, I could tell you that we were second to last in the region. Okay. I think we were only higher than Guyana. For this year, based upon the initial stats result released by the Ministry of Education, I do not have them in my, I have not been able to access them personally yet. But if my memory serves me correctly, the average for math was 38% for the region, and we are down. We are 31%. So we are significantly below the regional average in math, and that has been the case for a number of years. Interestingly, the opposite obtains for English A. We are usually above the regional average for English A.
Does that then say to CXC there's a problem with perhaps the administration of the exams, the content, that is the concepts that are to be taught, the way they are being assessed, or where does the blame lie, so to speak? Where do we go from here in assessing that the region, students on a regional level cannot adequately negotiate these exams if we continue to have less than 50% passing these exams, notwithstanding Antigua's average? I mean, the averages are low across the Caribbean.
Yeah, well, the reality is that performance and competency in mathematics and English especially, those are considered to be fundamental areas. Numeracy and literacy, especially as we go into the 21st century, are basic skills that any educated person should be proficient in. And again, let me just underscore the point that it is not just simply, in terms of mathematics, is not just simply getting a pass in math. Is developing mathematical competency, the ability to think rationally, logically. Mathematics is not just simply about working out things and solving equations and all of that. Mathematics education involves learning and practicing skills in problem solving, skills in logical thinking and reasoning, and those skills are transferable to other areas of life. Almost everything, that is why we say almost everything involves math. Everything involves logic, and you have to think, and life involves problems that require solution. Mathematics, when you do math, when you try to work out and find the answer for a problem, you might recall, Ursula, I think in math, the since, then, and therefore.
Yes.
Since so-and-so, then so-and-so, therefore, you come to a conclusion. Logical thinking. those skills are transferable to all areas of life. And so mathematics and the sciences in general, because the same for science, for physics, chemistry, biology, integrated science, they provide those skills probably in a more direct way than the other subject areas. Now again, all subject areas teach those skills. You could find those same skills in all subject areas. But especially in mathematics and the sciences, those cognitive skills that are fundamental to solving problems. And life is about solving problems. They are underscored more, practiced more, and demanded more in those subject areas there. And that is why it's important. So yes, we are struggling in the area of mathematics, not only in Antigua, but region-wise. And so we have to continue to find ways and means of improving competency in mathematics. Now, the debate continues, and there are several theories and ideas. Each person that comes to the table might even have a different idea, but we have to keep trying until it is we achieved. Now, I personally think that it is doable, and well, that could be the subject for another forum or another discussion.
Yes. French and geography continue to be problems as well. Every year I sit with you, Dr. Smith, and the numbers there in those subjects as well, concerning, we may argue they may not be as necessary for life as math is.
Right.
What do we do in those areas?
Yeah, so and those are two trouble areas as well. I am a geography teacher, and from my perspective, and I've said that to many geography teachers, we need to concentrate more on the map reading, the topographic map reading, the section of the syllabus, and ensure that first of all teachers are competent in that area, in those skills. Because if the teachers are not competent, then of course it will be reflected in the competency developed by the students, the candidates. When we look at the feedback that comes from Cxc, from having marked the scripts, the exams, that is an area that is underscored. For example, I think last year, the average that question that has to map reading were 25 marks. And I think the average for the region was about 8 out of the 25. So that is an area that is weak, and so teachers need to put more into that area. I have not taught French. I don't speak French, so I'm not able to talk about French.
Yes.
But I know for geography that is an area that I think that needs improvement to improve the performance in geography.
Yeah, and as a former French teacher, I know that sometimes it's the approach. Spanish is considered easier than French, and so that there's that block as well.
Yes.
Let's talk about the natural science, because you brought it up in your spiel.
Yes.
We've seen declining numbers in biology, physics, chemistry. Do we see an increase perhaps in integrated science or human and social biology? You know, students tend to believe those are easier to pass, to navigate than the biology, the physics, and chemistry.
So you know, a student, students of course take different paths in terms of the choice of subjects based upon their career goals and aspirations. A lot of it also driven by simply market forces. What areas would I more easily get employment,
yes,
and so on. So a lot of things go in determining the choices that students make. But as a nation, I think what we need to look at is, as I said, whether we have enough persons. So the numbers in some areas, let me say some areas to be specific, because this year we had an increase actually in biology,
okay,
but a decline in chemistry and in physics. And those are the natural sciences. We talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You could even include the arts, and call it STEAM. But STEM subjects are considered to be very important, especially in the 21st century, when the economic pillars, or what drives economic development, has shifted from resources, natural resources, to more human resources, the ability to reason and think and apply science and technology. And so if that is the case, then of course a nation who is desirous of sustained development as we go further into the 21st century would be concerned about producing enough scientists, enough technicians, enough engineers, all right, to drive the nation's development. And so in the ministry, I have called for a symposium when we could invite all the stakeholders, including government, ministry, tertiary education, employers, tradespeople, and so on, to let's look at the numbers in relation to our context and our population and have a discussion as to whether we are seeing enough students for our 100,000 population, enough students are doing these subject areas to ensure that as we go along in the future, we have enough of these people in our labor force. Now, many persons, of course, will do integrated science, just so that you could say you have a science background, and the numbers in integrated science is relatively high. And also, I think human and social biology, which is another called a science area. Agricultural science also has reasonable numbers as well, too. So it is in the natural science areas that we see that decline. Or that low numbers, and as I said, the TVET areas. My concern again in mechanical engineering, in building technology, in electrical, those numbers are small and continue to decline. Should we be concerned, especially, and I think the minister alluded to it, one of the things that I find interesting is that we have record numbers of vehicles on our roads, don't we? And they will be in need of repair and mechanics, auto mechanics, is one of those areas that I think should offer lucrative employment. And anything related to that, so mechanical engineering that has to do with metals and all of that. Building construction is also an important pillar in our economy. So again, shouldn't we be seeing more students doing building tech and electrical? Because you have to wire stuff, and that is just one aspect, of course. The electronics part of it, with all these electronic equipment around the place, shouldn't we be having or guiding more of our young people into those subject areas there, so that we have sufficient competent persons in those areas? Those, I think, are areas that we really need to have more discussion on and make decisions.
Let me also ask about our measurement and evaluation generally. At the primary school level, as students prepare for grade 6, there are grades 2 and 4 assessments to sort of get a snapshot of how well they're doing and guide their development. Should we be putting more emphasis on that exam after that third form, that CCSLC exam, in terms of giving students perhaps an idea as to what Cxc examination style is like, preparing them for the major CSEC exams at 5th?
Well, I could answer that two ways. And one, I think, let's face it, high stakes exams are important. And by high stakes exams, I mean exams that are going to determine significantly your future in terms of career, employment, and so on. So the Cxc results are high stakes exams. The grade 6 national assessment exam is also a high stake exam. It determines which school you could go to and all of that. So these are high stakes exams, and they will remain that way. And so the task of schools is to prepare students for high school, for high stakes exams. That's one thing. The other thing, of course, is to prepare students for life, to give them an education, a rounded education, regardless of exams.
Yes.
Now, schools, of course, are faced with the challenge of balancing the two, because we have to prepare students for exams. At the same time, we have to prepare students for life. And so, to answer your question directly, and I think some territories have done that, where at third form, if not everybody, but a significant number of students, regardless of your academic level of ability, they're exposed to that exam. And so we're preparing them for the exam in 5th form. Those exams also provide an opportunity for persons who might not have the kind of academic skills to get a pass at CSEC level to leave school with certification, all right, in those areas there. Again, the basic areas in math, in English, in integrated science, and in social studies, in addition to the modern languages, French and Spanish. So those are the kinds of discussions we need to have. To look, first of all, at the end results. In the end, we want all students who enter secondary school system to leave with some sort of certification, and therefore Cxc SLC would be important there. We want to increase the performance of students at all levels in those high-stakes exams. Maths we are struggling with, so therefore should we expose all of our students to Cxc Math at third form in order to prepare them to negotiate the exam at fifth form. That, I think, is a worthwhile discussion to have. And I think those going forward are some of the things that we have to begin to look at and discuss and explore.
Another question is, I know you don't like comparing schools, and we won't get into the schools' results individually, but are there indicators from the results that there are certain schools to which more attention should be paid, that there may need to be some intervention from the Ministry of Education, perhaps some more support offered? So
well, clearly, and I clearly support that. And as you said, it's unfair, and I'm not going to attempt to compare schools because the comparison would be unfair. And to clarify, for those who are listening, look at this. We have 21 schools, secondary schools in all, that offer candidates for exams. One school, put it this way, the school with the lowest number of candidates, or the lowest number of candidates of a school is 10, and compare that with, 140. The school with the highest number of candidates is 140. All right? That school with 10 candidates offered a total of 66 subjects that were sat by its students, and the school with 140 candidates, a total of 879 students. So again, it would be unfair to compare schools across the board. The pass rate ranged from, notwithstanding rates, from 55.8%. That's the school with the lowest pass rate, 55.8%. The school with the highest pass rate is 99%. So again, it tells you that. 10 out of the 21 schools has a pass rate above the average. So I said for 2025, the average pass rate is 77.4%. And 10 of the 21 schools has a pass rate below 77%. Those 10 schools, I believe, from the ministry's end, concentration should be made. That has been my mantra in the ministry, that we need to concentrate on the schools that we need to see an improvement in the overall performance. And of course, in general, not only the overall performance, but performance in terms of the numbers of students who are passing 5 or more, numbers of students who are passing mathematics and so on. So clearly, if our target is to improve overall performance, we need to be more clinical and more specific in where we channel resources and assistance to see that. Other than that, we will continue to have a percentage that seems overall to be good. For example, this year we said it's 77.4%, but there's a school whose pass mark is 55.8%. So that will tend to mask the schools that are struggling. So we need to be strategic and clinical, target those schools that are weaker in terms of being able to achieve higher pass rates, and assist them accordingly.
Guide us through, Dr. Smith, if you would, the query process. How do we query, how long that could take, and just reiterate how that could affect, of course, the naming of the top students this year.
So, and thanks for that question, because I'd like to use the opportunity to point out, remember, these are preliminary results. And my office has been approached, I know, by a number of persons who would have seen ungraded or absent on your result slip. Now, once you know that you would have, you were not, for example, you were present for the exam, you were not absent, you clearly, you know that's a mistake. Or you see ungraded and you would have submitted, you will get ungraded if you did not submit one of the 3 components of the exam. The components are the paper 1, the paper 2, and the SBA, or paper 3 If you know that you did all 3 components and you see ungraded, then know that is a problem. And so the process is you report to your school, either the principal or the person who is in charge of the online registration system, the ORS or the teacher in charge of that, and indicate the problem there. And then the teacher will, or the person in charge will, on the ORS, put through that query, which just simply said this person got ungraded, but all components were submitted, or the person got absent, but the person was present, and provide evidence of being present by scanning and uploading the result slip. And for candidates who did the exam, and all candidates, that is why we stress the importance of you keeping that receipt. I said result slip, it should be receipt slip that you got after each exam, and you'll provide that as evidence that you did the exam. That will be scanned, uploaded, sent to Cxc, and that would be resolved in time. Now, in terms of those who got a grade and you are not satisfied with the grade, you thought that you should have got a higher grade, then this is the process. Again, it is you go to your school or the person in charge and you indicate that you'd like to query. There's a cost, and it is $30 US or 60 Barbados dollars. We are requiring that you purchase a bank draft for that amount. 30 US, if it is 30 US per subject. So if you're querying 2 subjects, of course it will be 60 US. So you purchase a bank draft for the total amount, ensure that your name is on the bank draft, and you will submit that draft to your school along with the query, indicate to them what you're querying, and then the query will be put through, and that school will then forward those bank drafts to my office, and for us to give the green light to Cxc that indeed the student has paid and they could proceed with the query. Now, the process could take quite a few weeks, or let me say 2-3 weeks. Okay. The deadline is the 15th of September, by the way. Okay. And so while the processing, I don't know when Cxc will actually begin working on processing those queries, especially those with regards to the script review or the remarking of the paper with the hope of getting a higher grade. I don't know when they will begin that process, but bearing in mind that the deadline is the 15th of September, it could take a few weeks for the results of the query to return. And so, as I said, we have decided to hold back a little on announcing the top student, because the situation is as follows. Without announcing the name of the students, of course, we have one student who is leading at the moment that did a total of 20 subjects with 17 grade 1s, 2 2s, and 1 3. We select the top student based upon the highest number of 1s. So that person has the highest number of 1s, 17 1s. The person in second place did 22 subjects with 16 grade 1s, 5 grade 2s, and a grade 3. But that person has queried those 5 grade 2s and a grade 1. So if that result returns and that person has an increased number of grade 1s, then that person could jolly well be the top student. Interestingly, the person with the 17 ones, from my understanding, has also queried, and so could increase the number of grade 1s. We have a person potentially in third place with 21 subjects, 16 grade 1s, and 5 2s, and I think that person has queried again. And then in what we call maybe fourth place, we had a student with 21 subjects with 13 grade 1s and 8 grade 2s, and I think that person has queried again. So we want to wait and make sure that we do not face an embarrassing situation. We would have announced a top student, but then subsequent results showed that somebody topped that result. So we're going to wait for a couple of weeks, maybe up to a month before we announce the top student.
And that situation is not new. I remember last year we announced the top student, but the other 2 we had to wait for a while before we announced those because of the queries
same thing this year
as well.
Yes.
Let's ask as well, Dr. Smith, about centers. Do the results that you now have, do they cover the private centers where students took exams?
No. So the results that I announced just for the schools. Okay. Private centers include, first of all, there are 6 Those who register with the Ministry of Education, Antigua Private, called Antigua Private. And then we have the equivalent in Barbuda, Barbuda Private. We also have Learning Center, that's Mr. Lake's place. Collins Center, Albert Collins' place. And we have Abyss. And we have the YEEP. Yeah, those comprise the 6 centers. Those stats are not included in what I just presented, for obvious reasons, yes. They include adults and a different kind of context in which they operated.
All right. We have 2 minutes, Dr. Smith. But you wanted to say something as well about future iterations of the exams with
yes.
online, etc.
Right. So Cxc is going, continuing the progress toward electronic examination. As I said, this year we did most of the, especially the grade 1, or the paper 1, or the multiple choice exam online. And there's no turning back. There's no looking back. We're going full forward, full force towards electronic exam. In January of 2026, for the first time, the exams will be totally online. The multiple choice, the paper 1, and also the paper 2. Now, the paper 2 will be done in a format which is called hybrid, and that involves the exam paper itself, the question paper, being online, but the answers being written in an answer booklet. So those who might be worried about your ability to type fast, don't worry. You will be able to, you will still be able to write your answers, but just that the exam paper would be online. All right? And so we are going to be experimenting with that in January of 2026. And let me also add, candidates need not be alarmed. We did it, the hybrid, in June. Just recent exam, we have done it. It went pretty smoothly. There's just nothing to be alarmed about. The only difference with the hybrid, instead of having the question paper before you, it will be on the computer before you. And the booklet is laid out in a way that you cannot get confused. Question 1, it will be labeled question 1A or 1B, whatever, and you just simply write in the answer within the same time limit and so on. Let me use the opportunity again to, for those who might not have heard, of Cxc's thrust toward, again, trying to improve performance in mathematics without lowering the bar. And that is by offering what is called the modular approach to mathematics. And that is, instead of students being prepared on the entire mathematics syllabus over a period of, let's say, 3 years, starting from 3rd form, and write the exam at the end of 5th form, one exam, which is called the linear exam, and you get a grade. The modular approach means that the syllabus, the same syllabus, same topics, is now subdivided into 3 components or 3 sections. And you do an exam at the end of each section. And on the end, you get the grade. So they're starting in June of 2026 with a pilot. And Antigua, we hope to participate in the pilot where, so look at it now. Let's say at 3rd form, those who are going into 3rd form, and we have selected 1 or 2 schools to do this pilot, where the 3rd formers will be, start the preparation for Module 1. Okay? Also, in doing Module 1, you'll have to do the SBA component. So at the end of 3rd form, hopefully, you would have completed the topics on the regular syllabus that are now put together and called Module 1. And you do the SPA and you write that exam at the end of 3rd form. Now, what you'll get at the end of 3rd form is a pass or fail. So it's not a grade like grade 1, you'll get a pass or fail. Once you have passed Module 1, you get to 4th form now, you move on, you do Module 2. And then you do the exam at the end of 4th form, you pass. Now you're left with now, in 5th form, you do Module 3. And you get a pass. And then the 3 will be combined now, and you're awarded a grade, whether grade 1, 2, or 3. So that is called the modular approach that would be piloted in June 2026. And then it will be left for students and schools to make the determination as to whether you will do the modular approach or you will do the linear approach. Of course, there are advantages and disadvantages, I guess, to both, and the debate will continue. We are piloting it in 2026, see how it goes. Schools, parents, you're free to make the decision. I suppose to a large extent, would you want to do modular or you want to do the linear? But it's an attempt to see if we could increase the performance in math. And of course, the idea behind it is that rather than waiting until the end of covering the entire syllabus over a 3-year period, why not take it in chunks and then see? Now remember, it will be the exact same questions on each module that would be on the linear or the paper. So it's not that you get in different questions. It's just that you do in module 1, you'll get the first third, let's put it that way, of the question that will be on the linear paper, and so on. Same thing for module 2 and module 3.
Yes, I suspect there's some students who will, after third form, not want to see sine, cosine, and tangent again.
Yes.
All right. Very finally, Mr. Smith, I wanted to ask, just to clarify about the hybrid approach to the online exams, will some students have the option to respond by typing, or it's only questions on the screen, typing in the booklet?
Yes.
Writing in the booklet.
That's right. Once we're doing hybrid, there's no hard copy question paper. There's no hard copy question paper. There's only hard copy answer booklet. The questions would be on the computer, on screen, just as multiple choice. Multiple choice, everything is here. You don't have a grid sheet that you grid the answers. Everything is online. You just simply click and select the right answer online. That's totally online. Hybrid is like half-half.
Okay.
So you write the questions on the answer booklet. The questions would be on the computer before you.
All right. 30 seconds, just to wrap up.
Yeah, right. Now, for those who are desirous of making a second try at the exams in January of 2026, registration begins in September. We'll go until about the middle of October. You contact the examinations office for further details at number 481-5331. That's 481-5331. For those who are resitting, understand what resitting means. Resitting means that you are using back your SBA grade for the January 2026 exam or the June 2026 exam. So be aware of that if you fail math or English or any subject that is offered in January, and then only about 9 subjects that are offered in January, math and English included. If you are desirous of using back your SBA grade, then you indicate that when you come to register with the Ministry of Education that you would like to, you're registering as a resit. If you do not indicate that, then you will be registered as been doing the exam for the first time, in which case you'll be signed up to do the third paper, because SBA is not offered in June.
January.
So is not offered in January. So bear that in mind. And the deadline, as I said, we are going until around the middle of October. Call the office at 481-5331 for further information, and we will accommodate you. For the schools who are querying their grade, put through your query. The deadline is September 15th. Make sure all that deadline is reached. Make sure the draft for those who are querying the grade comes to my office. Your query will not be auctioned until I can verify that it has been paid for. The final thing I'd like to say is that those who have done the exam in June of 2025, your Cxc certificate, which is the real document that you'll need to have and secure, those we will get usually around December. So students must remember to return to your school in December of this year for your certificate. Now, we have been seeing an increasing number of persons who either they're not aware or they forgot that after you get this initial preliminary results slip, that is not the final document. The final document would be a hard copy of your results, which is a Cxc certificate that comes down in December of this year. So you must remember to return to your school for that certificate at the end of in December of this year. And please keep the certificate, maybe laminate it, keep it safe, because again, we're seeing increasing numbers of people coming in requiring certifying statements because they cannot find their certificate. The certificate is destroyed. It can only, is only meant to be issued one time. It's only on the condition that your house was destroyed by fire, by hurricane, by flood, or some other major disaster that the certificate will be replaced. And even then, it's at significant cost. It could cost up to $400 EC. And very rarely would Cxc do that anyway. So secure your certificate, keep it safely, because you will need it, trust me, for the remainder of your life, because we have some people even in their 50s coming in and doing new courses and requiring a proof of their qualification via their certificate. So it's very important for you to keep that for the rest of your life, essentially.
I don't think I can find mine, so I might need to come into your office, Dr. Smith, and ask for a certifying statement from you as well. All right, that's how we end this presentation. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for having joined us and so clearly explicating the results from the May-June sitting this year. It's always a pleasure to sit down with you and to go through how well our students did and what are some of the concerning areas. And of course, this will help fuel the energies and efforts from the ministry's perspective and other stakeholders, of course, to ensure our students get the best chance of success, perhaps in January or May-June of 2026 sittings of these exams. Our thanks as well to the Honourable Minister, Honourable Darrell Matthew, who had to run off to Cabinet this morning. He joined us at the very start just to offer his congratulatory messages to students and other stakeholders from the exams this year. My name is Russell Charles Jr. Thank you for joining us, whether on air, on radio, or online. We look forward to extensive reporting from the interview and the sit-down this morning. This is TV Presents. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.